Thursday, June 2nd, meeting of the Water Quality Management Committee will come to order. First item on the agenda is a presentation on the use of drones for eelgrass mapping by Simon Miner, Woods Hole Analytics, who's going to tell us a little bit about himself and his organization and about what they're doing with drones and eelgrass.
All right.
So, Simon, you're on. You can either do it here with a microphone like this, or up there, or you could get that microphone and hold it. But you do need a microphone for the TV people.
Oh, all right.
This might do it for you.
Yeah,
All right.
these are very sensitive microphones.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
So they can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well.
Right.
My
If
name
we
is-
can't, we'll hear from the guys
Excellent.
next door.
Thanks for the invite. My name is Simon Miner. My background is in biology, and got interested in things that fly probably, I don't know, 15 years ago. I teach at the science school. I teach embryology and robotics because I've always had one foot in engineering. And myself and a few of my biology buddies through MBL and a few other places, and one seafloor mapping expert who's working on her PhD, put this little company together. And we call ourselves Woods Hole Analytics. And what I'm going to talk about today is general uses for UAVs, what they're good for. And I'm switching the name from drone to UAV, if you don't mind.
And what does UAV mean?
It's an unmanned aerial vehicle. That's what they're referred to in all official, trying to get away from that weird word drone.
Especially in a governmental building.
Yeah, we don't, but, these things are not dropping anything. They're taking in information. Let's see if I can see this. So I'll give you guys a little background. The strengths of these vehicles, all the potential that they bring to the table, and their limitations, and there are a few. Mainly, their main strength is low altitude aerial images and video. Anything that would benefit from that, they are dynamite. And it's such a huge breadth of things that can make use of this. And I'm just going to touch the tip of the iceberg and then roll into how it might help us keep an eye on eelgrass. Image quality is fantastic. In the following slides, I'll show you some of what we can do with the images. And really, it's by virtue of being low. The cameras are not stupendous. You're just closer to the subject. And what you make up for, you don't take one image of an area. We'll take, in a place like Situ Marsh, that was about 1,100 images. But look, and you stitch them together later. And there's a lot of interesting things you can do with it. Versatility, what I mean by that is just the ability to fly at a moment's notice. Traditionally, we're comparing this to aerial, standard aerial photography or surveying. And those conditions have to be just right. We're all subject to those same conditions. The difference is if they change, nobody has to wait on standby. They're inexpensive, they're safe, environmentally friendly, you're not burning any fuel, nobody's in danger. And then as an extra added bonus, they do a really, really good job. So a wide variety of surveying. Are you familiar with photogrammetry is? Okay. So photogrammetry, georeferenced orthographic imagery. And I'll go into that if anybody has a question as to what orthographic imagery is, just speak up. And once I roll through it, you might have a pretty good understanding. Now, limitations are wind and rain. You can't go up in wind that's moving faster than the vehicle can go, which happens quite a bit around here. And rain, zero tolerance for rain. They have zero tolerance for rain. Same goes with a traditional aircraft to some extent, though you wouldn't worry about getting a few drops on your aircraft. I worry about getting a few drops on a drone or a UAV. And there's also, first I should just say right off the bat, All FAA regulations need to be followed to the letter, and they are among our circles. Let me just roll on and show you kind of just a little preview of what they can do. So this is, are all of you familiar with this part of the world?
Yes.
Yeah? So you see that little orange spot in the center? Can you guess which time of the year that I did this image?
Fall?
Absolutely fall, at about 4:30 in the afternoon, a glorious fall afternoon. And that light was just going bananas. There are no filters on this image. This is how it looked. Saturation might have been bumped up a little bit. So what you see around here is it's not Google Earth, but it's the same type of imagery. And it's overlaid on there. So what a georeferenced image means that image that we've stitched together and placed in space onto the satellite imagery is accurate to within a couple of centimeters in rotation and you know, laterally and vertically. And just to give you an idea, when I'm talking about image quality, the last eelgrass mapping that was done utilized aerial photographs that had a resolution of upwards of about 0.5 meter per pixel, which isn't too far off from Google Earth. And if you've zoomed in on Google Earth, you'll see the limitations. I'll have a couple illustrations of that. I want to show you what 2.5 centimeters per pixel looks like. And that is a very, very large area. And it's all, that's why I was asking about the internet. If I actually had the image on this computer, the computer would cease to run. And so you want to render it as you go in, sort of like Google Earth does. It doesn't just render the whole Earth, or there's not enough gigabytes in your entire house. So current applications, land surveying, as I said, georeferenced orthographic imaging. So these are things that historically we've done with a couple fellows and a map and a transit and what we call peepers. What you're looking at here is 3D imagery. That's a point cloud that you're looking at. And so what we've got is a jetty. And this is Town Neck Beach in Sandwich. This is before they put in sand, and this is after. Same jetty. That's a 3D rendering. Quite accurate. And you can do volume measurements with it. I'll show you a couple images later that if you take this image, and I apologize I didn't have the time to do it, I have to go to a desktop computer. My computer, though it's the fastest laptop I can find, can't do it. It's too big a file. And you can roll this image on, and again, this is zoomed in a lot. This image, if you were to print it at the same sort of resolution that you would print your family portrait at, would be 60 meters long. So to calculate things like volume, you can roll this image onto its side and compare, and you can do volume measurements with software and some expertise. Sand migration and shoaling. This is huge use for these, and it's fabulous. This is much more striking when I can overlay them and turn one off and on again, but that is the very same spot in the world and about 12 months apart. That is the inlet to Great Sipuisset Marsh. On the left is an image we took. On the right is, it's just part of the image I showed you earlier.
Right.
Same exact inlet, not too much difference in time. And can you see the best reference there is that point at the top.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed much, but look at how that sand has changed. Look at how that inlet moves
It changes
back
all
and
the time.
forth. Yeah, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
So it's great for things like that. So this would be an example of a macro examination of sand moving. There's some folks at, well, probably all over the place, but down at Huey, who are hanging LiDAR pucks off of some big ones, and they look at it on a micro scale. These guys are interested on how sand acts in the surf and how it's moving, one grain at a time. And they can put a LiDAR puck on that thing, look down, and actually map how the sand is moving with every single wave. Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, here's that same, this is just the stitched image. This is just an ortho image, which just means a whole bunch of images stitched together optically correct. And so tracking erosion is fabulous. Now this is sort of false advertising because this is reverse from erosion. That's how it looked before on the right. And after sand installation on Town Neck Beach and Sandwich, that's what it looks like after. And it's done to the same resolution. Again, if we had internet, we could zoom and travel all around and zoom in on spots, but it's the same type of resolution from that first image. Agriculture and forestry, I'm sure you guys have seen images like this. You can, when you get into multispectral imaging, and you can start parsing out the spectrum on, say, 10 nanometer between, you can start really starting to look at differences between things that are very subtle. You couldn't see it with the naked eye. I can't see it with the visible light in a normal camera. But as soon as you can look and start separating, taking images 10, 20, 30, 40 nanometers apart, you start getting some striking information. On the left, there's just something I pulled right off the internet on an image search. It just shows dry and wet. So multispectral can be infrared, the kind of thing you see in the movies or on television if you're looking at any kind of footage like that. And then on the right was an interesting example of speciation. Now this starts getting into our eelgrass. When you can start doing speciation, it gets interesting. And that is a plot of forest that, based on the spectra of light that's being reflected by the different plants, each plant has its own fingerprint, has its own sort of spectrum that it reflects. If you look at a rose, of course, you know, you're going to see red. And if you look at a leaf, you see green. When you can start splitting it up and you see two green, when you look at a forest or algae in the water, you might be able to see where you can't see with the naked eye. You could see it just pop right out when you start putting it through different spectra. So marine biology and ecology, again, I threw in that little note. We did a little bit of consulting with a lab that's trying to figure out, there's some sargassum down in Rio in a bay, and they're trying to figure out if it's actually naturally occurring or if it's invasive. But they're so close, other than getting genetics, they're trying to tell the difference between two very closely related seaweeds that are clogging their harbor. And they're trying to figure out where it's coming from, if it's natural or invasive. And we sat down and discussed using the multispectral angle. It might be there's only one way to find out, and it's to give it a go. But if they throw a slightly different, I mean, if you can start splitting that spectrum by 10 nanometers, a very small difference you probably could never see with your eye. I certainly can't, I'm colorblind, but I think the human eye is good for about, I don't know, 10 or 20. But when you can just eliminate everything else, things start popping out of the images. NOAA does a whole bunch of work with UAVs, with mammals and fishes. So what they used to do with a helicopter or an airplane to go and get population counts of seals, they've got several trained people that are now running UAVs. And so they'll do photogrammetry where they just do a big stitch. It doesn't even have to be that, sharp of an image. Seal's pretty easy to see. And you can go through and count a whole beach where they used to have to fly. So you're flying, you're fueling a plane, you got a pilot, you got a couple people in the air. This one you can pull up on a boat, send the thing out, run it, and nobody has to go up. If it's lousy out and then all of a sudden gets nice, they can send it up. They don't have to wait. They don't have to have a whole crew sitting next to an airplane until the weather breaks and pay them. And it does a better job as a bonus. They even started looking at fishes. They're just beginning to do this. This is a very new thing. And we're just starting to, the more you think about it, you'll probably on the way home, if you're interested, think of about 3 things that don't get mentioned, and it just, the ideas just start flowing, the applications for these. So they're looking at fishes. Tuna have an interesting thing they do. They get up near the surface and they're starting to come up with these assays, trying to figure out how best to count them. And seals is pretty standard. What they're doing, some of the advances are going to come in software, so that you can examine 50,000 images by the push of a button. Instead of sitting there looking at images, counting seals, you let the computer do the work. You can train a computer program to recognize a seal in an image. So, eelgrass mapping.
Yes.
So, presently, I mean, how would you use this for eelgrass mapping? At present, you would just use it in place of traditional aerial imagery. The last mapping that occurred, there's ground truthing that happens. So that means you get your aerial imagery, you do all the work to get it geo-rectified and ortho-rectified. And maybe I should define that right away. Can you imagine a camera looking straight down, but the frame is about, it's wide. And in the middle of that frame, if you were to extend a string down to the ground, it's a different length than on the edge. It's longer there. There's some geometry to be done. So an ortho image takes and uses software to figure that out. So you'll take a whole bunch, multiple overlapping images, and the software will take and figure out, so you're overlapping a lot, they have some geometry, and the software can do some striking things with that information, like make 3D point clouds. On the aircraft, you have a, let's see if I can do something else here. Oh, okay. On the aircraft, you do have GPS. You've got a lot of different data that goes along with that image. I'll get into it more in a minute, how the software chews on it and spits out this wonderful stuff that's really accurate. So, okay, you guys recognize this place. I did this about a year ago just for the fun of it, not knowing what was to come, actually. That is Bourne's Pond. I also grew up playing on that beach, and I remember when that inlet wasn't quite there. It used to be over here.
Yes.
And the original road went right along here. Of course, it washed away a little. They changed everything around, and I can tell you from memory, it was probably 10, 15 times wider than it is now. And that place was teeming with eelgrass. We used to call it the eelgrass massage when we got and lay in it as kids.
Grew up in Dix.
Yeah.
So, just another contrast between the resolution of the last sort of techniques in mapping and what we have at our fingertips now. 50 centimeters a pixel to 2.5 centimeters a pixel, that's what, a 20-fold increase. And we can kind of demonstrate what that means here. So on the right is your typical satellite image, that's Google Earth. And you can see it's pixelated. But if you know the size of a car, roughly, you see the size of the pixels over there. I don't know if it's a half a meter per pixel, but generally Google Earth is between 0.6 meters per pixel and 1.5 meters per pixel. So I would guess that the aerial imagery that's yielding a half a meter per pixel is probably slightly better, but that's in contrast to about 2 or 3 centimeters per pixel there. And I could zoom in even more on that, and before it ever looked like that, I could zoom in 20 times. Okay, so the EXIF data that's attached to these images. So you'll take that geometric information that the camera has. The software wants to know the focal length, it wants to know the altitude, so that it can do that geometry when you start overlaying these images. But also with each image, it also gets a lat and a long. That's relatively accurate, sort of consumer GPS accurate. But when you multiply it by 1,100 times and get the average, it starts getting pretty darn accurate. So it's recording a GPS position. It's recording the camera angle. There's a gimbal on most of these things that is really good at not letting that camera move. But it moves a little, and it wants to know how much. So you get a little bit of a camera angle that's all attached to this a little piece of data to each image. And it's just a JPEG image that has this data associated with it. Camera movement and acceleration, that's important information. As that gimbal is always trying to keep it straight, and right when that shot goes off, if it's moving a little bit, that's good information for a piece of software who's trying to put together a nice sharp image. And then altitude data. You take all of that information and it can make a 3D rendering of just about anything you try and map. It's a very accurate one. Okay, let's see, and repeatability. So here's another sort of advantage, if you want to call it that, over traditional aircraft, is the repeatability means that when I set up, like SIP-WISIT, for example, and we went out and did that, I can go back in a year and send that aircraft along the exact same path. In perpetuity, forever.
When you do the eelgrass,
Yeah.
roughly how high up are you?
I run it it depends. It
Well,
really depends.
Obviously, but
But
in general.
In general, it'll be between 40 and 60 meters.
Where do
You can't legally go more than 60 meters, really.
Okay.
You're
You
going
know.
to say something about how you recognize eelgrass, right?
Yeah, well, a little bit.
The accuracy you have 1,000 times more than we need.
No.
Unless you're going to count individual blades of eelgrass.
That's actually not the case. If we had a time to sit down and actually, I could show you the images, because there's challenges, which let me just go right to it. So the repeatability, versatility, as I said, no waiting and standby costs. That's what that secondary low pass is about. So if we're out there one day and take some images and get back and it's a little bit lame or a little bit fuzzy or unclear where that edge is, we might go back to an area of interest, because you don't want to do a giant vast area at ultra low altitude. I would run out of batteries, I would run out of days.
Yeah.
But if you have a place that's sort of complicated, and there's a lot of them, it's not always just on sand. There's a lot of other things in the water that look a lot like eelgrass. That's the challenge. There's two main challenges to mapping eelgrass, and that's one of them, is trying to figure out, you see the stuff, but is it really the stuff? And that's where the multispectral stuff in the future might just instantly make ground truthing unnecessary. As it stands now, dead eelgrass comes flowing in, and you could have a patch of dead eelgrass that's, bigger than the patch of eelgrass. Maybe there's no live eelgrass. But as far as that resolution, being able to see into individual blades, not quite that good. If we're talking 2.5 centimeters a pixel, it's not quite that good, but it doesn't matter. It's still plenty good to see a patch. So the unique challenges, number one is water. We're not looking at sand. We're not looking at pavement. We're looking through water. That does some awfully funny things with the software that's trying to chew on this stuff. In fact, one of the most popular pieces of software that's used for this is PhotoScan. It's about a $3,500 suite. And it does a lot of things. Mapping is just one of them. And first thing it says is don't shoot over water. Don't shoot over water.
Okay.
If we had listened to that, I wouldn't be standing here right now. We got lucky and just stumbled upon this. It works perfectly in water. There's caveats. That sun angle, there's a window. To get an image like that one that I got at Bourne's Pond about a year ago, there is a window of about 2 hours per day.
Morning or evening?
Either one.
Either one.
2 hours on either end, to be accurate.
Okay.
That sun has to be at an angle that it's bright enough to see the bottom and give enough illumination to a moving camera 60 meters in the air. And then it's got to be not so much overhead, because then when you're looking down, if you just think of the water as a mirror, you're just looking at the sun.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what messes up the software. It can't make heads or tails of it. And it'll make your 3D rendering, and believe me, a lot of trial and error came before that image is possible, to try and tweak that software to discard things that we don't need. But glare is one of the things that there's not enough tweaking in the world. And then, as the depth increases, there's this weird zone where things get fuzzy. The software doesn't know what to look at anymore. It doesn't know whether to look at the surface or the bottom. As the visibility gets, especially if the more turbid it is, but even clear water, if it's really clear, the depth is deeper you can look, naturally. If it's really turbid, the shallower it is that you can look. It might only be a meter. In the fall, last year, it was probably 4 meters. You could look right into the water.
So you don't want to go out when the tide's running or there's any turbulence in the water?
It doesn't matter so much as what's in the water. At certain times of the year, the water gets cloudy.
Oh.
So you want to do most of this stuff in the spring and the fall when it's clear, perhaps even the winter, but then you start getting into the life cycle of the plants. What do you want to, whatever you do, you want to do it at the same time every year, so that you can track changes over time rather than changes from January to June. You want to be limiting the changes to what you're trying to measure. So that too early in the morning, there's not quite enough light, but then shadows. There's usually woods around estuaries. And the shadows, it'll start freaking out the software a bit. And if there's a shadow there, you can't even when you look at the naked image, you can't quite see the bottom. So you have about a 2-hour window on either end of the day. Wind, ripples on the water can be a problem. Mainly because even in those 2 hours, if you put enough ripples on the water, you'll still get some glare. There'll be some of those angles will find its way to the camera. So it's not quite, when you're looking through the water, if we sat down, I'd be glad to send you a link or something. You can really look at these images on your own time. It's not quite enough to see the individual blades. When you really get up on it, you see a little bit of water, and you see both, sort of the surface. But if it's moving, it tends to ignore it. Same goes with glare. It'll tolerate some glare, because it moves all the time, and that's the overlap that all that repetition is for.
I didn't mean to, I was kidding.
Oh.
I didn't mean to imply that we would need to look at it.
No, you figure it's almost overkill.
How you propose to recognize it and distinguish it from other things.
Okay. Initially, well, let's move to the next one. So the things that'll come in time, I mean, not a lot of time at that. 2-3 years ago, the software wasn't nearly as powerful. This wasn't happening that much. It's moving by leaps and bounds. And where the improvements are going to come are going to be in image analysis, the mapping software, and 3D imaging. So the image analysis, and then multispectral. Multispectral, so maybe I can get an image up to show you that it's kind of difficult. Let's just explore a couple of images. And I can show you what eelgrass looks like from the air here. Let's see, sheep's pen is good. Are you all familiar with where sheep's pen is?
No.
Okay, let's, it's only going to let me open one at a time. This is worth a look though. And I didn't get them all to open. Any Microsoft people here?
I'm looking at the file size. That's not an image.
Oh,
You can see it's a
really?
4 kilobyte file size. Something's not right.
Something is not right. Let's have a look. Let's find those files. Oh, here we go. Thank you, by the way.
Here's our Microsoft guy.
I'm a Mac person.
Okay, well, we'll look at them one at a time.
All right.
So what we have here, Woods Hole, that's Woods Hole Passage. Pretty familiar with where this is?
Yeah.
Okay.
That point.
Now, Sean.
Yep.
No, Sean.
Okay, and we're just zooming in. Some of that is eelgrass. Some of it is eelgrass, some of it is dead eelgrass, some of it is totally different algae. And that's about what we're looking at. That's plenty good for mapping eelgrass. You'd still need to ground truth the daylights out of this map. You'd need to go out and find those edges that were unclear. You can make a couple of passes with a very accurate GPS and an underwater camera that are synchronized, their timestamps are synchronized. You can do a grid over the whole area. It's not, terribly difficult. A little bit of time, but not terribly difficult. If you do a grid over the area, and you have a GPS that can track your path, then you can sit there and watch that movie, and when you see a true edge, you look over to the GPS at the exact same time, mark your point, put it on the map. See if it coincides.
Are we about 60 meters up now? with
More or less,
this?
yeah.
Okay, and the dark area is the eelgrass? And
Yes, there
then-
is eelgrass throughout this area,
Okay,
but it's difficult to see edges. Some of this, and this, mind you, this is like a game of telephone. On my screen, the imagery is better than on that screen.
oh, sure,
And the file that this came from, it's even better.
sure.
So what I'm seeing on my screen is actually, when you look at this dark area, there's a few different shades here. And
I'm not
I've been
sure.
here, and you can't assume it's all eelgrass, you have to ground truth it.
What causes that, oceanographers here, what causes those characteristic patterns of a dark spot surrounded by a clear ring surrounded by more dark?
Awfully interesting.
It's
I
not
don't know.
random, I mean, there's
No.
more than one of them.
Could be a little bit of structure there.
It could also be elevation.
A
Eelgra-
big rock and something about the turbulence.
No. I was thinking, eelgrass has an optimal depth at which it likes to grow.
No, this is actually all the same depth.
Oh, really?
Well, there we go, is what I'm thinking here, what I'm thinking this is a lot of sort of dead eelgrass blowing around and making some weird shapes. Is if you know, and that's another way to kind of figure out, to sort through the wheat from the chaff, is to do one mapping and do another one, and the stuff that doesn't move is eelgrass. The stuff that has moved around or migrated during that time is not. It's dead, or it's some other cosmic debris that is floating around. But there's a lot of,
Well,
There's a
the
lot
dead
of-
stuff moves around.
I'm sorry?
The dead stuff moves around.
Exactly, exactly. So if you did 2 mappings or 3 of this very same area, and you could track those changes, you start overlaying them on each other, the things that don't move, you could bet is live eelgrass. The stuff that does move, and
Or rocks.
Or rocks, yeah. But it's easier to tell the difference between a rock and eelgrass than it is to tell the difference between dead eelgrass. I mean, these are things we have to sort out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, at the moment, that's why the caveat right off the bat for mapping eelgrass using this is just simply to use the best common practices that have occurred from 93 to, what, 07 or 2010. You just use this in place of the aerial imagery they're using. Bonus, you get 20 times the resolution. So and it's a lot less time in the lab, screen time, trying to get it to line up. The software georeferences it. Again, those EXIF tags. So you just use it in place of the traditional aerial imagery, but you get a couple of bonuses. Now, what's coming down the pike is not a lot of this is going on yet. As we progress, a year from now, we may be able to get away with no ground truthing. We start hanging multispectral off of it. And that was the other thing, is that 3D imaging. That is just about to the point. And that's another thing, big difference between live eelgrass and some stuff that's floating around, or even other algae, is that the eelgrass is taller. So if you can run that 3D imaging, that stuff might just pop out perfectly. And it's getting better every day. A year from now, I could be showing you images and polygons around eelgrass where we've cut the ground truthing in half. Don't know yet. This is the way you find out. You start doing it.
But right now, you're saying that if we use the UAVs to identify eelgrass beds,
Yes.
we would need to ground truth it
Yes.
as well.
Yes, absolutely. We have to find these assays. You know, I've talked to a lot of folks that have been trying to do this for a while, and all the same problems come to the table. I can't see the edge, and in some places, if you fly low and get that 3D, if you get a really good day, some really good conditions, the software is just, everything's jiving. There's been a few beds that we got that were like, this is great, if we could do this every single time. But the software is just, it's moving. It's getting better and better and better at rendering this 3D, using all that geometry and all the other information that's in the EXIF data to try and render 3D. And if you just have, it's almost to the point where you can see a 6-inch difference in elevation. And then you go out, first step, use it as just in place of the traditional aircraft. And then that's part of the ground truthing, is finding these errors, developing these assays. And they have to be developed.
I'm going to ask a
Sure.
different kind of question.
Sure.
Sheep's Pond, I think you
Sheep's
call it?
Pen, yes.
Sheep's Pen. I don't know the size of it, 1 acre, half an acre?
Here, I'll show you. Maybe we can get some scale here.
And where I'm going with this question is,
Yep.
how long did it take you to shoot that particular area?
This took about 40, actually in the air, about, figure 30 minutes. That involves 3 battery changes, and the aircraft can only stay up for about 15 minutes,
Oh.
more or less.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So you bring a stack of batteries.
Didn't,
You have to get there.
well, yes, obviously.
Right.
Yep. But actually in the air about 30 minutes.
Okay,
But there's a lot on either end of it.
yeah.
You
yeah.
can see the size in that larger picture you got. That's the
Sure.
same size as Juniper Point.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not
Right
bad.
there at my cursor there is
So-
about an 18-foot boat.
Yeah, I was just extrapolating from that to
Yeah.
doing Bourne's
Right.
Pond,
Right.
which is a lot bigger.
Well, if that's an 18-foot boat, that little white dot
That will,
right in the middle there.
oh, okay. Your boat?
You might need half a
His
day
boat.
to do Bourne's Pond, for example.
Now, Bourne's Pond, actually, you're looking at, remember the 2-hour windows?
Yeah.
You cannot leave line of sight, so you have to maneuver around. It's, I mean, I've done about a third of it before I knew what was coming down the pipe. And that was pretty much 2 days, just to do about a third of it. So you have, you know, 2 to 6 days if you're really lucky. You can get it all done in 2. Everything goes smoothly. If you like the results. In the air, the machine will be up there probably 3 hours in the air. But it's like taking an airplane to LA. It doesn't just take the time in the air. You gotta, you know,
Right.
2 hours to the airport, you're there 2 hours, I mean, it's very similar.
Well,
But you
Only
could
you
and
get
bringing
there,
it
and then the wind is
back.
blowing too hard, and you have to go home.
But you could get Bourne's Pond in one pass from an overflight.
Yes, if you want to look at it from a half a meter,
Right.
which will look something like this. And what you make up for it too is a whole heck of a lot more ground truthing. And you won't develop the assays to later save a whole ton of time.
Need a radio-controlled glass
That's what it
bottom
looks
long
like.
boat.
Hmm?
You ever thought about a radio-controlled long boat with a glass bottom?
Yeah, they're
And
making
you're
it
saying
over annuity.
software.
You ever heard of the yak bot?
Yeah, but theirs cost millions.
No, the jet
You
yak.
wanted the
The
model
jet
stuff.
yak is pretty cheap. You're talking about the jet yak.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
Sorry,
pretty,
jet yak.
yeah, pretty inexpensive.
comparatively it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hanu's
How long
very
would it take one of
interesting.
those to do Bourne's, to do a few acres?
A yak bot? Or, sorry, jet yak?
Jet yak.
Jet yak? I'm gonna venture a guess, but the only guy I know that would answer that question is Hanuman Singh, the guy that designed it. I would say, you know, if you're in 2 or 3
Right,
feet of
the
water,
field of view is pretty
it
small.
would be on
right?
the order of weeks. But this is similar, that's the exact same spot, just turning off and on my overlay. And this is probably about 0.6 of a meter per pixel. So that looks a little different, and this is, at the last mapping, this is what an aircraft yields you. Maybe a little better. I mean, I have not seen that particular imagery. So let me see if I can close that. But that's that very same spot as this.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, if you're happy with what you get, on one, you know, when I did that part of Bourne's Pond, just from my own experience, I was out there for, you know, 3 or 4 hours. Thing was in the air for about 45, 40 minutes, something like that. If you get really lucky and just nail it, but you have the wind conditions, the rain conditions. If you're following current best practices, you also want to do it in a window where it hasn't been blowing for the last at least 24 hours. They said 48. No big rain events, so the windows are small. And
So can you program it to do a grid, or do you do it by line of sight?
that's how it sort of started, but you definitely have a grid. There's software that's being used in the on a tablet. So you have a computer, in essence, with you that's going through the RC unit. And I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you guys. If you have a question, call it. So there's an app. There's several. The one I use, I like the best. I know a couple folks that each has their strengths and weaknesses. But you set up a grid in advance. And I sure wish I brought it with me. I came straight from somewhere else. But you have it do a grid. There is no way, and I've seen folks try. I've, on occasion, filled in a couple blanks. You know, okay, we clipped that area and just gone back and sort of, you know, added some with great success. But to do a whole entire area, you would lose your marbles and it would come out, oh, it would come out horrible. So you have to make the grid. Then the software I'm using, you can set the elevation. It also estimates how much batteries you're going to use. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece of software. I meant to throw it in my bag so I could pass it around you guys, you can see it. And all of them are saved, so each and every section, that Bourne's Pond, for example, would have 5 sections, 5 separate sections. You couldn't just do it all at once. You can do 3 of them in that window of 2 hours, though, 3 of the 5. And then if you just have these really nice windless conditions, come back maybe in the afternoon. But typically, you know, I've done that place. It's just one of the places we were playing with in the beginning when we were first trying out this software a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And it's buggy. You have to be able to you basically, when you're doing it, you're solving problems, usually glitches, software glitches.
Yeah.
Every day it gets better.
Isn't it usually windy in the afternoon?
Yeah, it is. Not always so, but typically
Yeah.
you like to be there about 7. And then right about 7:45, the shadows get tolerable. So after about 9:30, it starts getting dicey. Depends how much wind. If it's flat, calm, you can still get some really good imagery. If it's not, that glare comes into play and
Right.
starts throwing the software off.
Is this software proprietary, or is it available to everybody? What's the story on that?
Well, I mean, there's about 3 major companies making software that can digest this and spit out this kind of imagery. One is Pix4D, that's among the best. The other is PhotoScan. They've been around a while, and it does a couple of different things, but orthomosaicing is, the guys I know at Hui that are playing with this like it a lot. That's what they're using. And there's a couple of services, you know, online, where they have proprietary software you upload all the images to. It's a paid service, and rather than spending $7,000 on Pix4D, you could do, you know, 2 Bourne's Pond-sized maps for probably, you know, $100 a shot. But the downside of that, you can't do a lot of tweaking. Each and every one of those things has an upside and a downside.
All right.
PhotoScan is nice because you can train it a little bit, whereas you just depend on those. And no service I've seen has allowed you to tweak it, where there's no redos. So you might put it up, think you have good imagery, and you don't. You know, they let you do a little bit of testing if you have some in doubt.
Is it true that when you're looking through water, you have to limit yourself to the visible spectrum? Infrared won't go through the water?
I don't know. That's a very good question.
That's true. So So for your multispectral,
Yeah.
you can still do it, but you have to, it's just what you and I can see.
Yeah, typically the ocean, the wavelength that travels through seawater the most readily is about 490 nanometers. And that's why if you were to put a lot of fishes or cephalopods' eyes into a blender and then see what their retinas, the pigment that it's most sensitive to, it's all around about 490 nanometers. So, yeah, it's true. Reds are one of the first things to split. Absolutely. But there's a lot between, you know, if you can start taking 10 nanometer slices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to do eelgrass.
Yeah, no, infrared would be a bad
choice.
choice. Yeah, it would be a very lousy day. Absolutely.
Well, this is mind-boggling. Any comments or questions from folks out here? No? Okay. Or folks over here? Yeah,
Yeah.
Paul?
You look at seasonal variability.
We look at it, try to avoid it. Because again, you don't want to measure seasonal variability. You want to measure, for example, at Bourne's Pond, the effect of more water flow. I assume folks are interested in, I assume it's not very cheap to do what they're going to do, and so you want to know that it's working. And, or at least be able to have a beat on the effect. So, seasonal variability is going to affect things like epiphyte load. That's the stuff that's on it. That's a natural part of the ecosystem that, you know, eelgrass encompasses. But too much, and it chokes it out. It can't get enough life for itself. But you try to avoid those seasonal differences. That's why if you were going to, you want to do it at the same time of the year every year. At least the mapping. When it comes to epiphyte load, one could make the case actually that you'd probably be better off with something less rigorous and more often. Because if you have a warm spring, as opposed to a cool spring the next year, you might see a difference that has nothing to do with the variable that you're trying to measure.
Right.
But more data the better, in any event. If you were given an allowance of 120 samples, you might consider doing, you know, 12 every month or something, or every 3 months, maybe some variation of that, and then to do 120 in 1 week. And it also depends if the data is flat. No way to really know that until you get out there and start doing it. But if you take 120 samples and the epiphyte load is all the same, you're going to feel, maybe that's good. I mean, if a year or two down the line, you see changes that you can see a pattern, maybe. But I would guess, it's just a guess, that if you had 120 epiphyte load samples that all were the same or darn close to it, you're probably better off doing 10 sort of randomly every month. And then you could really track some changes. Of course, you got to find somebody fool enough to get in that water in January. But
So Simon, I
yeah.
don't see how this UAV can see epiphytes. That has
it cannot.
It
has
cannot.
nothing to do with
Okay,
it.
so we just need to be clear about that.
Again,
It
yeah,
can
to be
track
clear.
area of eelgrass beds,
Yeah.
but in terms of the epiphyte load, that would have to be on
It's
the
good
ground.
old-fashioned sampling.
Somebody wading through.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What's the newer technology that comes in is that same software that makes it possible to make these really accurate, to make these maps to begin with, the GIS,
Allows you
ArcView.
to pinpoint where you are.
It's interesting, if you pinpoint where they are, who knows what that's going to yield down the line. But it might be, good to have 120, just shotgun the place with 120, if they're not flat, like the epiphyte load, if it's not flat, if it's variable.
Oh.
If it's the same on one end of the embayment to the other, and everywhere in between, you get the same exact result, maybe the next year, you break it up, do 10 every month for a year. And then you might start seeing differences in seasons, and start be able to sort of tease out what the increased flow or decreased flow, or some of the other factors that you're interested in measuring, rather than a warm spring.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Can I ask one?
yeah.
If somebody brought you a stream of images from a totally different source, could you work with them with your software to make a map out of it?
If you have all those particulars, absolutely. You need things like set overlap. I can throw a mismatch.
I'll tell you what the crazy idea
Yeah, please.
is. I mean, I'm not even implying that we even need this data, but I'm just having fun thinking about it.
Wonderful.
You take a bunch of waterproof GoPro cameras.
Yep.
And you space them whatever spacing you like, a foot.
Yeah.
On a 20-foot boom.
Yeah.
And you tow it behind a shallow gas speedboat. You get gorgeous pictures in color up close. You have more data than you can imagine.
Yeah, more than I
You
have.
can do it in way less than weeks. Because it's not a submarine.
Yeah.
It's a surface craft.
Yeah.
That's going 30 miles an hour or whatever. Well, you let Chuck Martinson do it, then you don't worry about the speed. But,
Well, it'd still take a lot longer than 40 minutes on the water.
but you could, anyone who lives around here could look at it and see if it's eelgrass or not. Anyone who knows what eelgrass is could
Yeah,
recognize it.
in theory, sure. If you developed a glider that, kept the right height and everything.
Oh,
It's-
this is
No, it's right on the surface.
It's right on
of
the water.
Okay, so you're saying
The
it's
camera
floating.
is
Yeah,
floating on
that
a
data point I can give you now. Altitude is zero. It's zero.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you dialed in the focal length so that they overlapped enough, I'm not sure what the software would do with it. And it's the exact same thing as what you'd want to do to ground truth as it is, and that is take one GoPro and do a pattern, say go every 10 meters or 20. You get that done in, a couple of days. And whenever you see that edge, you mark the spot. If you put 10 on it, I don't know that you'd gain anything, and it would be very difficult to do. In theory, yeah. But if you've ever used a GoPro, the batteries last about an hour. You have 10 of them you got to change out. You got to come up with a contraption. I can think of about 18 things that would go wrong with it. Whereas one, you can just pull it across and do a pattern, and then sort of extrapolate. Even if you did it once every 20 meters, it would probably be on the order of 10, 15 times more accurate than the last mapping that was done. So yeah, if you really wanted every centimeter, you could get it, doing something like that, or just make a grid.
Well, I'm not thinking too much spatial, it's the quality of the image.
Yeah, so you'd have the lens in the water or above it?
An underwater camera,
Okay. There's
an
weights
underwater
and
video
things.
camera.
Right,
And you could power it from the storage battery on the boat,
okay.
so you don't have to worry about the battery.
Yeah, you'd have to make a contraption, and that would be difficult. But yeah, in theory, it would work. Maybe. It depends how fast you go. As soon as that camera starts making a wake, and it's going to be shaking all over, and you might go, and I would even say it's possible theoretically, maybe.
At the beginning of your presentation, you said that you would take email questions from people, and
Sure.
I think you may get some
Yeah,
from Steve.
no,
Yes,
it's an interesting thought.
But Steve is our interesting thought guy here.
yes,
Right?
yes.
So we thank you so much for bringing this around,
Right.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
showing us how far behind we are in so many ways. But
No, this is cutting edge.
well, we're
You're right on
behind.
the
We're
front.
behind. We're still doing it from 30,000 feet up, taking the state of Massachusetts, and the data that we have to
Not
work
anymore.
with is not this.
Well, next time it's done, this is how it's going to be done.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
no, that's not just me, it's
Great.
everybody. That's where
Great.
it's going.
Great.
USGS is training dozens of people. Everything's moving that way. And as the software gets better, it'll even get better.
Great.
Anyway.
Great.
Simon,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
Thank you.
So I have your email address, and I'll just send it to everybody.
Yes.
And then,
Absolutely,
Great.
yeah.
and then,
I might even send you another,
sure, You have
the
mine.
actual, business email.
business email.
Yes.
I think that
See
would,
ya. See-
That'd be
That would
better.
be a
Yeah,
good
you
idea.
don't need
Yeah,
this
see, you
stuff.
got mine from some friends. friends.
You don't need the stuff at home.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm just gonna.
Right.
Okay, the next
All right, Doug,
piece,
thanks.
Cape Cod.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Cape Cod Commission funding. Now, some of these are our jurisdiction, some are not.
Right. The first one is our jurisdiction, the stream nitrogen removal
Right.
pilot test.
This was a last-minute request by the commission to see if we had some small-scale projects that could use some small-scale money very soon, because it's got to be committed and spent by June 30th. So we're here to talk about, what was the amount on the
This was 4,000.
stream nitrogen removal, as that's certainly our project.
SIA sent a paragraph around, which is what was submitted to the Cape Cod Commission.
Right, yes, I think everybody saw that one.
The basic request actually came through the DPW, and so all of this information has been sent back to Ray Jack to send to the Cape Cod Commission. But as Eric said, it's a specific, it had to be something concrete, so it was either equipment or labor that was performed in June. And for this particular project, C identified $4,000 worth of effort.
And the whole working group for stream nitrogen has gone over that paragraph.
Oh, great.
Generated drafts of it before it got to that level.
Okay.
We're very much in favor of it.
So it's $4,000 approved by the working group. Can I get a motion?
You want to move it?
Oh, yes, I move that we spend the money, or we request the money.
Request that.
That's it.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Got it? Okay, the next one.
And then just, the other two requests are through the Department of Marine and Environmental Sciences, and these are projects that we've already approved for grants, but the actual, these requests will come through the DPW or DMES. All of this is being sent to the selectmen for permission to accept the grant.
All right, so we don't need to move or vote
So we
on
don't
those.
need to vote them, but everybody's aware that we're doing a sediment aeration experiment in Great Pond. And then the shellfish project in Bourne's Pond is the beginning of growing oysters there, and this is the pilot project.
So this is a request to the selectmen to be able to
To-
apply.
Well, to accept the
To
grant.
accept, yeah.
This
This
is,
is,
the application has gone in,
Yeah,
because the
okay.
commission, the application is simply a paragraph or two, just like you're seeing here with the stream.
but have they been awarded to us?
No, they haven't been awarded, but the selectmen have to approve us receiving them if we receive them,
Okay.
so.
Right.
but,
Okay. So no further votes needed from
No.
us. Okay. Next one, report on Mashpee Sewer Commissioners Meeting.
Okay. I have that report. We mentioned at the last meeting that the Mashpee Sewer Commissioners were meeting that night, and Sia was able to attend, and she wasn't able to be here today. So there were 4 items that were on their agenda that were of interest to us. The 208 planning has a process which are called watershed-based permits. And this is where you have a watershed that's shared by several municipalities. There has to be an intermunicipal agreement, and then ultimately a document that's issued by DEP called a watershed permit. So the first run-through of this new regulatory process is being done in Papaneset Bay, and that's a water body that's shared by Sandwich, Mashpee, and Barnstable. And it's of interest to us because Andy Gottlieb, who's both chairman, he's both the Mashpee Selectman, and he's also on the Cape Cod Collaborative, and has been working very closely with the commission on the 208 plan. It's his thought process that the permit and the MOU that is hammered out for Papaneset Bay will then become the template that we use for Wacoit Bay. They've started that. Part of what has to be settled is how do you measure which portion of the watershed is your responsibility Sandwich, your responsibility Barnstable, your responsibility Mashpee. And so there's sort of some comparison of databases that's being done at this point. That's as far as they've gotten on that one. The second item was the sewer planning, that is the CWMP for Mashpee. It's a total of $180 million, and they're working on the first phase, just the way we did Little Pond is our first phase. Their first phase is also about $40 million. And they are looking at all the existing package treatment plants in Mashpee to see what amount of capacity they have. The plant would be like for the mall or for the high school. They have quite a number of package plants in Mashpee, and they're going to see what neighborhoods can be added in to each one of these package plants. They're at the stage of how do you deal with betterments? And so there was apparently a lengthy discussion about sewer betterments and how much does the town pay? Is it 0% or is it 100%? And we'll all remember that discussion. So that's where they are on that. The third development in Mashpee that's of interest to us is that they have done a reorganization of their government to deal with water quality issues. So they have created a department called the Natural Resources Department. They have put their shellfish warden, he's now the administrator for that, and they are bringing in somebody else to be the clam cop, as they said. So they will now have a specific department that is focused on water quality issues. Here in Falmouth, we have more or less this committee working with the DPW and Department of Marine and Environmental Sciences. That's how we address the same issues. And the last item that was of interest was the Moonicus River Study proposal, which was to be joint with Mashpee. You remember there were contributions from various organizations and a grant as well. So that is under contract with SMAST, and they've installed the stream gauges at this point, and they will be collecting data this summer. That's the report.
Comments or questions? Thank you very much. Other reports of members and staff?
Have we done anything?
It's
Last
been a
2
week. Or 1 week or two. I think weren't we here last week?
No, I think
just-
it's 2 weeks.
All right, well,
No, I guess that's it.
Well, we did have on the 19th, the second of the
yes.
aquaculture meetings.
Yes.
And there's a the invitees all showed up, so there was quite a big group there. There were some people from the oceanographic, NOAA and oceanographic, that were there and showed an interest. So I think that's off on the right track. They still haven't put out the RFP for the consultant yet. That was being worked on in the Water Resources Department. So that's the sort of the next step. They did go over the regulatory process, and you know that paper that Ron and Smolwitz put together that we saw, that I thought was quite a nice overview of the regulatory process in all the New England states, or actually all up and down the East Coast, is a sort of a nice place to start on working on the regulatory streamlining. But that really is only a small part of the problem. So the biggest part of it is going to be figuring out asset allocation.
Yeah.
And that's where the real challenge is, and I think what's going to really take the year, and they're planning to try and get this all wrapped up within 1 year.
1 year.
So
And did they officially name themselves? What's?
I'm not sure. It's a working group.
It's a
working group, not a committee.
Okay,
So it may be the aquaculture working group,
okay.
but they seem to be quite nicely represented.
Good.
And they sort of thought, working with the people who were interested in shellfish and aquaculture, of the various stakeholders, working their way through the regulatory process and the asset allocation, and then broadening out at that stage to the other stakeholders and folding them in to say, okay, now, how do we get this past the boating public and the beach public and the abutters, who all are going to want to
Yeah.
chime in?
Good. Well, I'm glad you're doing that. I don't think we have too many other reports at this point. We have minutes of the prior meeting of May 19th, which were sent around.
Move the minutes.
Okay, they moved and seconded. Any discussion or modifications or improvements to be made here? All right, all in favor of the minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Any of, Matt being absent, would somebody else like to?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All right, moved and seconded to adjourn. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
We got it.